We want to thank our sponsor, the Collaborative for Christian Ed Leaders. Providing Christ-centered education to the next generation is an endeavor too complex to brave alone. The Collaborative helps unite Christian ed leaders from faith-based schools with the goal of strengthening their communities and elevating their educational experience to rival any alternative. Through a member school community, events, and mastermind gatherings, the collaborative aims to establish and implement a collaborative vision for K through 12 Christian education. Joining the member school community is free. As a member, you will have access to free resources, tools, webinars, and shared services. Together, we can work towards a brighter future for our students, teachers, and staff. Explore all that the collaborative has to offer at beacollaborator.com. That's beacollaborator.com and sign up to be part of the member school community. Now, enjoy the summit session. Well, welcome. I'm so excited to be with you today and to be talking about how to help your teachers succeed at classroom management. I'm assuming if you're here, you're an admin or in some type of leadership role in your school, and you recognize that there are teachers at your school who are struggling in this really important area. And it is so important. It might not seem as important as some of the other things we do at school, but truly, I believe classroom management is a foundation. If there is good classroom management, good order, good respect in a classroom, then all the other things, right? The teaching, the discipleship, the relationships, all of that can happen. But when the classroom management is not good and it's missing that foundation, when there's chaos and disrespect, then everything else is way harder. It's harder for the teacher to teach. It's harder for the students to learn. Those relationships and discipleship is harder to have happen. You might have parents complaining, issues to deal with, so many things. And so what I want to do here in this video is do two things. We're going to talk about 6 ways that you can help your teachers succeed. And these are going to come from a few different angles. Some of them is going to be ways that you can help your teachers to improve, but also things that you can do as an administrator to make sure that you are setting your teachers up for success. So I'm really excited to dive into this with you. First of all, if you are not familiar with me, my name is Linda Kardamis. I'm with Teach for the Heart. And for the last more than 10 years, I've been helping teachers and schools in many areas, but particularly with classroom management from a biblical perspective. And I teach this because I struggled with it as a teacher. When I first started teaching, I did not know what I was doing. I hoped just giving an occasional teacher look would be enough, and it was not. So I had to learn it. It was not innate. It didn't come naturally to me. I had to learn how to make it work. And then as I started Teach for the Heart, I realized, man, I had to learn this. There's so many other teachers that need to learn this as well. And so it's been a pleasure to work with thousands of teachers and help them with classroom management. And I'm looking forward to speaking with you today as well. So let's dive into 6 ways that you can support and help your teachers. Before we do that, we'll take just a moment and pray together. Father, thank you just for each admin that's here that cares enough to want to learn more about their student, how they can help their teachers in classroom management. I pray that you'll bless in my words, bless as they listen, make this a really helpful session for them, Father. In Jesus' name, amen. All right, so diving in, one of the biggest things is that teachers really need you to lead, particularly in this area of classroom management. So let's go through these 6 ways that you can lead and support your teachers. So number 1, lead with clear school-wide behavior expectations. In other words, it's really powerful when you as the admin have clarified this is the behavior we expect from our students, both outside the classroom and things like the hallway or in the lunchroom, but also this is the behavior that we as a school expect in a classroom. Because when there is consistent expectations everywhere in the building, that makes it so much easier for each individual teacher to hold to those expectations. I mean, think about it. If every grade level or every classroom has different expectations, and in certain classes, students really have to listen and focus, and in other classrooms, it's kind of fine if they're really not listening and very disruptive. That teacher allows that. And, certain teachers in the hallway are making their students in elementary walk in a line, and others just don't make them do that. And that makes it a lot harder for teachers that are trying to have good order to do it, because their students see, oh, well, their kids don't have to do it. Or maybe last year they didn't have to do it, and now they do. it's still doable for the teachers, but it's so much harder. But when you as the admin say, okay, I'm recognizing that it is good for all students to name the expectation. For example, you might say, okay, in elementary, when students are in the hall, this is what we expect. And you define, this is what it looks like to behave in the hall. And you can choose where to set that line. You might make it really strict. You might make it somewhere in the middle, but this is the expectation. Then that becomes the standard then as you work with it across the board. It becomes the expectation for everyone. Also makes it way easier for teachers to work together. If everyone knows what the expectation is and it's the same for every student, then other teachers can easily help enforce that expectation, even if it's not their class. So can you as the admin? It just makes everything so much easier and more consistent. And then as you build a culture around that, then as students go from grade to grade to grade, those become ingrained. And as new students come in, they just naturally pick up on those cultural cues. And it eliminates a lot of problems as you develop a culture around that. Now, I just mentioned one thing, how students walk through the halls. That's not even one of the most important things at all. You want to really think through what matters, what things are going to make a difference. I particularly recommend thinking about behavior in the classroom. What is and isn't acceptable? What does respect look like? And what is not acceptable as far as respect? You might also think through procedure things. For example, missing homework. I know when I first started teaching, this was one of the challenges in my school is that an unintentional culture, the school clearly didn't intend for this to happen, but a culture had been developed among the students that like, you just kind of didn't need to do your homework. And it would be normal to have half the kids in a class just not do their homework. And that was something that each teacher fighting it individually was very difficult. It needed an admin and a school-wide policy to come into place and say, we got to change this culture. We're going to work together on this. We're going to have a clear expectation and we're going to have boundaries and consequences so that we can really work together to correct this error. Another place that I think is really, really something that you should consider is cell phones. So, and I want to really just make a quick recommendation to you. And thankfully, I think the momentum and the research is really starting to make this more clear. To, if you don't already, please consider and pray about making your school a cell phone free zone, where students are required to keep them in their locker or store them away somewhere. It's just teachers. The research is becoming more and more clear on this. And I don't know of a single school that has gone to this, that the teachers have said this was a bad idea. It just really eliminates so many distractions, so many things. It's also good for the teens' interactions. So once again, that's an example. Even if you don't choose to go all the way there definitely should be a really clear cell phone policy at your school that you can help all work together on. So hopefully this is giving you some ideas of what to think about, but I really want to encourage you though also to ask your teachers and say, hey, what are some problem areas that you're struggling to address because it is inconsistent, because we don't have a school-wide expectation. Talk to your teachers about it, see what patterns emerge, and ask, where can I help you by having these clear expectations? You might think of areas like homework, tardies, noise level, respect, so many things that you can do. And then as you raise those expectations, keep them high, because when you create those school-wide expectations and everyone, including you and the other admins, are supporting them and enforcing them, it really is amazing. So my point here is, don't feel like, oh, students can't do that. Yeah, they really can. You'd be amazed at how well students really can do when it's expected of them, when the bar is set. Everyone is in agreement and we're working towards that together and we're expecting that and enforcing that. You might be amazed at the progress that you can make. And it all starts with your leadership. So that's number one, lead with clear school-wide behavior expectations. Number two, create school-wide behavior systems that support teachers. So I want you to think for a minute. We talked about before about expectations. We're talking now about systems. In other words, ways to deal with behavior issues. So think for a second. What happens when a certain behavior expectation isn't met? So let's say students are disrespectful, tardies, missing homework, whatever you fill in the blank there. The more that teachers have to figure that out on their own for their own classroom, the more disjointed and inconsistent discipline becomes. And the more you'll find that certain teachers are fine with it because they are really good disciplinarians and they're good at classroom management, and other teachers really struggle because they don't know what to do. So what you can do as an administrator is create systems that clarify consequences for everyone. So answering the question, well, what happens if a student doesn't meet this expectation, or if a student, for example, is disrespectful, has missing homework, is tardy? Fill in the blank with, you can go through this with so many different things. And thinking about, can I create a system that clarifies this expectation for everyone and then the consequence, so that it's really simple? Like, when this happens, this is how we always deal with this. And I'm not going to second guess the teacher, because this is what is expected. We all know what to do. And the administration is able to back it up because it's all been pre-planned and kind of agreed upon. Not that it's a democracy, but basically, like, this is what we're doing. We all understand it. We're all on the same page. Now, I'm not saying you do that with every single tiny thing, but once again, asking your teachers, are there certain issues that come up where it would be helpful for there to be a school-wide expectation of, when this happens, this is how it's dealt with on a school level, rather than forcing teachers to come up with their own consequences in their own classroom. So ask them, what holes are there that might be helpful to fill? Now, one caveat in this: be careful not to box teachers in too much. So as you create systems, you want to make sure that these systems are adding help for your teachers, not taking away from teachers' toolbox. So an example of something that would take away from a teacher's toolbox is if you were to say, positive motivation only, no consequences. So now you're creating a school-wide expectation and kind of a system, but what you're doing is you're taking tools away from a teacher and boxing them into only one way of dealing with something. And that's not really what you want to do, okay? You also need to recognize teachers have different personalities and might deal with things a little bit differently. So we're not going to define, this is what you must say. And we don't want to be too like in the nitty-gritty, but having these school-wide expectations, for example, something like, on the third missing homework, this is what happens. On the fourth, this is what happens. On the fifth, this is what happens. So it's very clear, and the teacher doesn't have to figure that out. It's the same for the whole school. Those are the types of things that can be really, really helpful. Once again, ask your teachers what they think would be helpful. All right, so number 1 was to lead with clear school-wide behavior expectations. Number 2, create school-wide behavior systems that support teachers. Number 3, back your teachers up. Okay, it is reasonable to expect that teachers should be able to deal with most issues in their classroom or with the school's discipline system. Okay, in other words, most issues they should be handling either with their own system or with the school's system, like we've been talking about. But there are also other things where they need an admin to come in and help. When bigger issues arise, an admin should be ready to step in, help, and back up the teacher, particularly when an issue that's happening in the classroom is disrupting the entire class. So think about it, okay? You've got one teacher teaching, 20, 25, 30 students in this classroom. If a behavior issue is happening in real time that the teacher's not able to quickly resolve, and this behavior issue is keeping the rest of the class from being able to learn while it's happening, that's something where teachers really need to be able to call an admin, grab an admin, whatever. You need to have a policy in place where teachers can say, hey, I need help with this kid. And you can come and take that student so that then that teacher can get back to teaching. Because how is a teacher supposed to teach their class and deal with this really big issue that isn't resolving itself? It's being very interrupted. That's impossible. It's not impossible, but it's very difficult to do both at once. And at best, the teacher's attention is incredibly split. They're not giving their best attention to these students. They might have to quickly just assign them something and hope they can do it while they're dealing with this issue. So recognizing that you stepping in and helping with those things that are happening in real time can really support the teacher's ability to continue educating their students the way that you want them to. So thinking through for yourself, how, is there a place where teachers can send a student when they're being overly disruptive? Okay. Do they have a place? Is there some type of system? If not, what would work for your school? Do teachers know that they can ask you or another admin for help with bigger or chronic issues? So in other words, when there's something, we were just talking about something happening immediately in real time, but what about bigger or chronic issues? I have a student that's continually having problems with this and I'm dealing with them. It's not getting better. Or it might be an academic issue. It might be a behavior issue. Do they know that they can come to you for help, that you will help brainstorm them, that you will help provide support, that you'll intervene and be involved in the situation as needed? And don't assume that they do know. Maybe ask yourself, are teachers coming to me for help? Because if they're not coming to you for help, they might not realize that they can. Or maybe certain teachers do, but others don't. So think, how can I make it more clear to teachers that I am available? And when they do come, part of that, by the way, is when they do come, truly seeking to help and not just making the teacher feel bad or, just giving them more on their plate, truly seeking to help, both with advice and with stepping in yourself as needed. And do teachers know that you have your back, that you have their back? We'll talk about this more later, but we want to make sure that we're not undermining teachers. If there's an issue that where you're like, I don't really agree with how they dealt with that, you need to talk with that teacher first and work through that before undermining. You don't want to go undermining them to a parent or a student. You need to deal with that with the teacher and help them correct anything that needs to be corrected that way. So number 3, back your teachers up. Number 4, ask about and listen to teachers' classroom management concerns. I've mentioned a few times already, ask your teachers, and I want to encourage you to do this here as a separate item because it's so important. Ask your teachers, you can do it in a group, but this is really great one-on-one. What challenges are they facing when it comes to classroom management? And then listen. Listen to what they're saying and seek to understand. I love Stephen Covey's principle, seek first to understand, then to be understood. Okay, so ask for what they're struggling with, and then seek to understand it. And what might emerge is, wow, we need a school-wide system. I need to be able to step in and help. Or it might be clear, oh, wow, this teacher needs some guidance. But regardless of what it is, seek to really understand the issue, ask questions, try to understand the teacher's perspective before jumping in. Because once you understand the teacher's perspective and why they're struggling and what they're worried about, that's going to help you better know how to address it. Some things that you might do, you might need to guide them in what to do differently. You might pick up on, oh, actually, this is not a good way to deal with it. Let's deal with it this way. You might recognize, wow, I need to step in and get involved in this particular situation with this particular student. Or you might realize, hey, I need to address this. This is actually a systemic issue. I'm hearing the same thing from multiple teachers. We need a school-wide plan to address this particular issue. So number 4 was ask about and listen to teachers' classroom management concerns. Number 5, provide training for your teachers. If you have teachers who are struggling with classroom management and or any teachers that are new to teaching, you should not expect them to figure out classroom management on their own. Some of them will, but they will do it the hard way. And some of them won't, and they'll end up quitting, or you'll end up not being able to keep them on because it's that big of a deal. It's a very important thing that if it's not happening, everything else in the classroom becomes harder, discouraging. It's just not going to work out. So don't expect teachers to just figure it out on their own. Some of them can't. And even those that can, you're like asking them to struggle when you can help them get over that hump a lot faster. So make sure they have the training they need, the resources they need to figure out how can I deal with things in the classroom. It's so important for teachers to have a plan, to know, okay, when this happens, what am I going to do? And that's not something that a lot of preparation programs, college degrees teach. So it's something that they need help with. So we do have at Teach for the Heart a few programs that can help with that. So please feel free to check under this video for more details, but I'll just explain real quick a couple options that we have. We have workshop series where we actually help teachers first with figuring out how do you manage your classroom and then actually putting together that plan of how am I going to deal with various options. So we have workshops that can be done in a group PD setting. They're on demand and a combination of teaching and then time to actually work together and for teachers to collaborate, which is so helpful. So those workshops are a fantastic resource if you want to do it in a group setting. We also have our Classroom Management 101 course that teachers can go through online individually. So if you have just 1 or 2 teachers that you feel like need help, they can go through that course on their own. And it walks them through and gives them all the tools and tips and strategies that they need to be able to reduce disruptions and create a classroom that's orderly. We also have a school license that is available, and our school license includes all of the workshops, there's 5 of them, and access to the Classroom Management 101 online course for all of your teachers, both now and in the future. And it also includes access to mentors and a whole lot more. So we'll link to that if you would like to get more information. But my point is, if you're like, okay, I know I have teachers that need help, I don't know where to send them, check out those resources because we would love to help your teachers and give them the tools they need. Because what you need is you need your teachers to have their tools, and then they need your support, but you need both pieces. Both pieces are really important to be able to work together. Now, make sure when you check out that information, we have a special coupon for you. Through the end of the summit, if you use or mention the code RISE UP, you can save 10% on the workshop or school license. Okay. So you simply want to go to teachfortheheart.com/schools, or you can email us hello@teachfortheheart.com. And once again, use or mention that code RISE UP to save 10% on a workshop or a school license. All that information will be down below this video if you need to reference it again. All right, so number 5, provide training to the teachers who need it. Don't expect them to just, trial and error or magically figure it out on their own. Finally, number 6, make sure teachers know that you are in their corner. It's so important that teachers know you are on the same team as them. And all these things that we've talked about are going to help with that. But in this point, I want to particularly talk about when you have to have those tough conversations with teachers, when you have to go to a teacher and have that conversation where you're saying basically like, you're not, we gotta fix something, we gotta work on something. That can be tough. So a few tips to help you make sure that teachers know you're in their corner, even when you're having those tough conversations with them, which you do need to be having. They are super important. So number 1, once again, seek first to understand, then to be understood. So when you're coming to address an issue with a teacher, it's real important that you seek to understand where the teacher's at, why they're doing what they're doing, what's going on. Because a lot of times there might be some misunderstandings. There could be a lot of times the teacher's doing something for a good reason, but it's actually not going to produce the result that they want. So trying to understand why are you doing it that way is going to help you as well. It's going to do one of two things. Sometimes you'll realize, oh, what I thought was the solution here actually isn't based on the situation. I had an incomplete understanding of the situation or why they were doing. So that's super helpful. Other times you might say, okay, I understand the situation better. We still need to make this change. But now the way you address the change is so much better because you're actually able to address the teacher's concerns, their fears. You're able to explain why what you're recommending is actually a better way to this result because you understand where they're coming from. So don't skip that step. Seek first to understand, then to be understood. Number 2, be clear in your expectations. So in other words, if you're expecting something from a teacher, please be very clear with them. Sometimes teachers are given very vague instructions and they don't really know what to do with that. So make sure you're very clear about what you expect to change. Then you need to make sure that the teacher knows how to meet that new expectation or the expectation that you just clarified. So here's what happens a lot of the times. Admin will give teachers an expectation. And in the admin's mind, how to do this is very clear and like in a lot of cases, like not even a huge deal. It's like this should be very obvious and we should do this. But in the teacher's mind, what they hear, they don't understand the path to get to there. And what they imagine as the way to do that is way more complicated, way more convoluted, way more difficult or challenging than what the admin intended. Or maybe the admin didn't have a clear path, but like they don't know how to do that. They just might be like, I don't know how to do that. So you can really save your teachers so much headache and stress. And you can also make it a much better chance of success by asking them, how do you plan to implement this expectation I just gave you? How do you picture doing this? And listen to what they say. They might say, I have no idea. Or they might tell you what they're thinking. Well, I guess I have to do this and this. And you can say, oh, no. That's not what I meant. I meant this. Or you can say, okay, you're not sure what to do. Here's how I would do it. And take the time to talk that through, because I've seen this over and over and over where the problem is a misunderstanding between what the admin is expecting and what the teacher hears, or just the teacher not knowing how to do what they want, and feeling like it's impossible or really difficult or way more challenging than it should be. So take that extra step to make sure they know how to meet the expectation. One last thought in here. If you do need to overrule a teacher, make sure that you listen to them first and try to adjust it together. So we talked about this a little bit before, where there are times when a teacher does not handle a situation well, and the decision they made, the consequence they gave, or a way they deal with it, a parent comes and it actually does need to be overturned. It needs to be changed. But the best thing to do here is not to just overrule them to the parent. That really undermines the teacher and makes you feel like you do not have their back. So the better way to deal with that is go before. No, you can just tell the parent, I'm going to look into this and get back to you. Even if you think you know what's going on, make sure you go to the teacher and once again seek to understand. Hey, I heard this from the parent. Can you share your perspective? See what emerges from there. You might be surprised. But assuming that even after that conversation, you're like, yeah, we still need to overturn this. Talk with the teacher about that. See if you can get and explain why. And if at all possible, get the teacher then to overturn it. Because see the difference there? If the teacher made something and then you as the admin go above them and overrule them, now their authority is undermined. And they're going to continue to come to you to overrule things. If instead you go back to the teacher and you work it out with the teacher and then they go back to the parent and take care of it and fix it, now the teacher's authority is left intact. And that relationship between the parent and the teacher is also helped by that because they see the teacher making it right and coming back to them. And you can just circle back and say, hey, I talked with the teacher. I think they're going to talk with you. Let me know if there's any issues. And just putting that back into that order, I think works so much better the majority of the time. So I hope that you guys have found these tips helpful. Let's go through them again. Once again, number 1, lead with clear school-wide behavior expectations. Number 2, create school-wide behavior systems that support teachers. Number 3, back your teachers up. Be there to help them when they need help with classroom management. Number 4, ask about and listen to teachers' classroom management concerns. Number 5, provide training for teachers that need it. Number 6, make sure teachers know that you're in their corner. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you for caring enough about your students, your teachers to be here. I hope that you'll be able to implement at least one of these strategies into your school year to be able to help your teachers. And if you'd like, once again, any more information about our classroom management school license or workshops, check out the information below or go to teachfortheheart.com/schools. Thank you guys so much. I hope you have a great day.